Okay, so I think that's enough time. Morning, everybody. My name's Samantha Leaney, or Sam Leaney, and I'm an account manager here at Prosperon. Thank you very much for attending our webinar this morning about network automation with SolarWinds, device discovery and compliance. My responsibility here is to help customers ensure their platforms are optimized, as well as maintaining regular contact to keep them up to date with the latest technologies and products. We've also got Raul Gonzalez on the webinar. He's the Senior Monitoring Engineer and Training Manager here at Prosperon and is responsible for delivering consultancy and training services, as well as managing our technical department.
Good morning, guys.
So today's webinar, it's basically about how to automate network device discovery and ensure policy compliance using advanced network automation within SolarWinds. Our goal today really is to help you guys understand how you could save time, as well as being more efficient by making sure new network devices are automatically discovered and monitored within the SolarWinds platform. We also want to show you how you can reduce the risk of errors through manual configuration changes and how you can easily make sure that your devices are secure and compliant by automatically checking against both your internal and industry standard compliance policies. So before we begin today's webinar, I just want to let you know that it's interactive. It's important for us to ensure that we keep the session as relevant as possible and as useful as possible for you so that you're going to get the most from it. In order for us to do this, we're going to have two ways of gathering that feedback. The first is going to be through voting polls. So what that means is there's going to be a couple of questions that are going to pop up throughout the session, and it'd be really, really helpful if you guys could submit your answer, and then what we can do is we can steer the content that we display, the demos that we show, and the scenarios that we use based on the feedback that we get from you. The other way of interacting with us is through asking questions, which you can do in the chat box that you'll see on the GoToWebinar panel. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you our first poll. And what I need you to do is just vote on this. Are you currently using SolarWinds? So you should see that poll there. I'll give you guys a couple of minutes to submit your answers, and then I'll be back with you. Okay, lovely. So everybody voted, I'm really pleased to say, and it looks as though the vast majority of you have got SolarWinds in place. So what I'll do is I will move on to the next slide. Bear with me. Okay, so who are Prosperon Networks? Some of you may know us already, but for those of you who don't, we are the leading UK authority on deploying, tuning and training users of SolarWinds products. There's three main reasons why customers get in contact with us. Perhaps you already use SolarWinds. Some of you might be relatively new to the tools, and others may have been using it for a long time. But what you both have in common is that you want to improve what you get out of the tools. You could be looking for ways of optimizing the platform, either from a performance or a usability perspective. You could be looking at implementing best practices through automation or assistance, or perhaps you're looking for help with upgrading your modules. Or perhaps you could just be looking at ways of increasing the efficiency of your monitoring estate through, let's say, integrating other tools that you're using that aren't necessarily SolarWinds based. Or perhaps the last scenario is that you are, the second scenario is that you're still considering SolarWinds. You might be looking to understand, say, the implications of implementing SolarWinds, or you're looking for recommendations around architectural designs and planning. Perhaps you're looking for help with the documentation of the process, from both a commercial aspect all the way down to low-level design documents. And finally, we've got a lot of customers that can also reach out to us for assistance once the tool's in place. This includes both technical support as well as general advice, like I mentioned, part of my role, on how to achieve certain things, get a second opinion, best practice advice, those kind of things. The thing that really backs up our level of service and customer retention is our experience. So when Prosperon was founded, SolarWinds had one single product, which was NPM. And over the years, without going into too much detail because we'll be here forever, they've grown substantially. And in those 11 years, we've focused solely on SolarWinds. This is all we do, and we're dedicated to monitoring because we understand its importance. All of our engineers are SolarWinds certified, and from the screen you can see we're on site around 1 of every 3 days. and we currently have 6 SCP engineers, and I'm pleased to say that should soon be 7. We're exposed to highly secure installations for both small and some of the largest deployments in Europe, and we work with customers from almost every single vertical. So here I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the added value that's provided when you renew your maintenance with Prosperon. So support really is quite key here, and what we do is we complement SolarWinds support with our own, and that is with a view to reducing the time it takes for customers' issues to be resolved. And in practical terms, this means that what you can do is contact Prosperon for your support. Your ticket will either be dealt with by our engineers, or if it needs to be escalated to SolarWinds, we'll make sure that that's got a priority escalation and we'll manage the ticket on your behalf. On top of that, you'll get a free health check of your SolarWinds platform. The reason why this is relevant is because after having performed hundreds, not myself obviously, but hundreds of health checks over the last couple of years, we keep seeing the same gaps. And we're not necessarily talking about how attractive or clever the network maps are, but rather the fact that not many of you are using SolarWinds advanced features as well as you could be. And in some cases, you might be shocked to know they're not actually being used at all. And what's even more important about the advanced features is how much they contribute to reducing the time you need to spend managing the SolarWinds platform. As an example, automatic device discovery. But I'll let Raul cover that for you in a moment when he talks about the modules. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass you over to Raul, who's going to take us through the next part of the session. I'll be keeping an eye on the questions section, and what I'll do is I'll shout those out every time Raul gives me a little moment. So Raul, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Sam. Can you make me the presenter, please? Good. So yeah, let me show you my screen. So good morning, guys. My name is Raul Gonzalez. I'm a senior monitoring engineer and training manager here at Prosperon Networks. And today I want to talk to you about device discovery and automatic compliance policy check for the devices that you have on your network. In order to show you this capability that we have in SolarWinds, we're going to cover 3 of the modules that we have on the Orion suite. The first one is Network Configuration Manager. The second one will be IP Address Manager, and the third will be User Device Tracker that we'll cover in a second. NCM, Network Configuration Manager. This is a really great product that allows you to get configurations, backups of the running config, startup config, or any other type of configuration that you have on your network devices. This is really useful, not only just to get a backup, just in case the device breaks and you want to restore the last configuration that was running, but also once we have the configuration, once you have the running config and you can see all the configuration lines on that device, you can see if that device is complying with your policies. For example, you have an internal policy that you don't allow Telnet or CDP, Cisco Discovery Protocol, has to be disabled, or maybe something simple as public cannot be used as community string when we use SNMP. All these little policies that you have in your company can be tested using this product. And that's something that we're going to check later on the live demo. Also, as you can see here on the slide, other features like bulk change, automatic scheduled network configuration backups, erroneous network changes, detect and report compliance policy violations, that's pretty much what we were talking before, device auditor, and end-of-life, end-of-sales information. So this is NCM. We're going to cover in a second when we do the live demo. Another of the products that we're going to cover today is IP Address Manager, IPAM. And with this module, what we can do is, first of all, monitor the usage of the subnets that we have in our network. So we can know how many IP addresses are being used, how many IP addresses are available. We can also monitor and manage DHCP servers and DNS servers. So this gives us an idea of which are the IP addresses that are being used in our environment, and if a device with a specific IP address is connected to the network or not. And finally, the last module that I wanted to show you guys is UDT, User Device Tracker. And this is going to be a key component for the demo that we're going to do today. This module allows us to know what is connected to our network. So we monitor our access switches, our access devices, wireless LAN controllers, access points. And once we monitor these devices, we can know which are the IP addresses, which are the endpoints, which are the MAC addresses. We're talking about laptops, printers, other network devices like switches, routers, anything that has an IP address or have a MAC address will be detected by this monitor, and this will show you a list of all these devices, where they are connected, where they were connected in the past, which user, which AD user, Windows user is using that device, and all this information. As I said, this is going to be a key module because based on these features, we're going to be able to know what is connected to our network and verify that those devices, if we want, are being monitored in our platform. Good. So we have these modules, but which are the challenges that we are facing here? What happens when people don't monitor in SolarWinds a new device in our network? And this is a really common issue. We are SolarWinds admins, we want to monitor everything, but we always have some colleagues that don't tell us that they have added a new device. Maybe it's a server, maybe it's a switch, maybe it's a firewall, and potentially, if we don't know anything about that, maybe these devices are not compliant with our policies, we are not monitoring these devices, we are not monitoring these services, so we are completely blind. So you can see here, we don't monitor devices, we don't have performance indicators, we cannot do capacity planning, or we cannot even update the inventory. So this is a real problem that we have, not only in SolarWinds, but with any monitoring tool. But as you will see today, we have some ways to try to minimize this issue. Other of the challenges that we have today is what happens when we don't check if a device is compliant with our internal policies. As I said before, if we don't monitor a device, we are blind. We don't know anything. We don't know if it's up or down, if the CPU is 100%, if there is disk space, or if it's a network device. We don't know if it's compliant with our policies. We don't know if Telnet is disabled. We don't know if it's a security threat because there are some vulnerabilities available on that device, or if we have to meet some industry standards like GDPR, PCI, SOX, or any of the others. As we don't know, we cannot check if they are compliant or not. Other issues are inconsistency. For example, we have some devices pointing to a specific syslog server, some other devices that are pointing to another syslog server. We have inconsistency, or NTP server, traps, NetFlow, lots of different issues. So these are pretty much the issues that we have, or the challenges that we have nowadays in our network.
So we've got a quick question here, Raul, just before we launch into the second poll. So somebody here that's already using SolarWinds says that they're a little bit wary about switching over to the device discovery, just because they've got 14,000 interfaces that are currently being monitored, and I think the concern is that if they switch to the Sonar discovery, they might lose what they're currently monitoring and they'll have to start afresh. Is that the case?
SolarWinds has a deduplication process that, based on the sysname, MAC address, and the host name or the machine type, now I remember well, but basically on 3 metrics, SolarWinds can check if a new device that has been discovered is already being monitored in SolarWinds. If that's the case, if someone detects a device that is already being monitored in SolarWinds, it will not import it. It will skip that process. So you will not lose any data. I guess that was the question.
That's correct. Yeah, perfect. Thanks very much, Raul. Okay, so what we're going to do then is we're going to launch into the second poll here. You should be able to see that now. And it's, are you currently using SolarWinds NCM, UDT, or IPAM? Obviously, you can make more than one selection here, so I'll give everybody a couple of minutes and we'll check back in a second. Perfect. Okay, so the results here are that a lot of you are using NCM. We've got a couple that are using UDT and a few more using IPAM. Perfect. So I will pass you back over to Raul. But before I do so, we've had a second question from the first chap, Raul. He's now asking whether he would need to delete all of his current monitoring in order to move to the Sonar discovery.
No, it's not necessary. I mean, you can have an existing existing devices being monitored in SolarWinds, and you can add more new Sonar discoveries that will not delete, will not erase anything that is there. If there are new devices discovered, Sonar Discovery will import these devices. If some of the discoveries are devices being monitored in SolarWinds already, the Sonar Discovery will skip the import process. So you will still have the data there. So don't worry too much. You can create as many Sonar discoveries as you want. So the Sonar Discovery will not delete any data, and you don't have to delete any of the existing data. You don't have to do anything like that.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Raul. Okay. So yeah, I'll hand you back over to carry on.
Good. So it's time to go for the live demo. So let me switch my screen. So as you can see, guys, this is a SolarWinds installation that we have here for demos. And what I've done is basically go to one of the modules that is User Device Tracker. As I was mentioning before, this module allows us to monitor the endpoints connected to the network. So at the moment we have here 5 different devices that we're monitoring. As you can see that on all these devices we have different interfaces, and we can see what is connected there. Just to show you one, let's go, for example, to this interface. You can see here the description, you can see if it's connected or not, the VLAN, and the number of IP addresses and MAC addresses connected. Just to have a little bit more information, let's drill down. And you can see that at the moment, at least for the last 7 days, we have this device with this IP address and MAC address connected. We can even click on the MAC address just to see what kind of device is this. And we can see here on the left-hand side that the current connections, this has been discovered as a direct connection on this interface of this device, and has also been discovered here. Basically, what SolarWinds is doing is checking the ARP tables or app tables of the devices in order to check if the MAC address or the IP address is being seen there. That's why you can see that in some situations you can see a direct connection, or some others that, okay, this MAC address has been seen on this interface, in this case is a VLAN interface of this device. Other information that we can get, where you get the MAC address that has been currently being seen, you have the IP address, and then something interesting is this, the vendor. How can SolarWinds know the vendor? Basically, because you know, guys, that the first 6 octets of the MAC address defines the vendor. So these 6 octets are from this Grandstein server device, but if you have any other device, you will see that, yeah, you can get this information. This is something public. It's not only SolarWinds. You can check online if you want. But yeah, based on the MAC address, we can know the vendor of that at least network connection. Just to show you another example of how UDT works, we can also integrate it with our domain controllers. And for example, we can go to, let's go to this one, this interface, where you can see again, which is the device being connected. Actually, you have some historical data as well for the last 7 days. And if we go to the device, you will see again that this is a direct connection to this interface, has been seen on this VLAN of this device. And sorry, I think it has to click here. Yeah, here, sorry, you have to click. You can see logins. So as we can connect with the domain controllers, we can check all the user event logs. And we can see that this user, this is an AD user, a Windows user, is connected at the moment on this device that is connected to this interface of this device. And we have this MAC address, and we have this IP address. You have all the information from this user. And actually, you can also click on the user and see the different connections of this login. You have some information here, and the last devices where this user has been logged in. Okay. So this is good, because based on this information, we can know which devices are connected to the network. This is really important, because we know what is connected to our network. And as we are monitoring devices, and we can get the IP address on the MAC address, we can compare the list of devices discovered here with the devices that we are monitoring in SolarWinds. How can we do that? Well, we have created a view that we have here, devices.monitor, that will show you all the IP addresses that has been discovered using UDT, User Device Tracker, and are not part of Orion, are not being monitored in Orion. As you can see, this is a really expensive query. That's why it takes a bit of time to execute, but here we have the results.
So Raul, I'm just going to jump in. We've had another question here. Do you need an agent for UDT?
You don't. UDT is monitored using SNMP. So as long as we have SNMP access to the device, we can get that information.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. So you can see we have here on this list the device where this new IP address has been detected, the interface. Sometimes we can get the name of the endpoint, sometimes we don't, as you can see here. But what is important is we get the IP address. We get the IP address, and based on the integration that we have with IPAM, remember, IP Address Manager is that module that tells you whether IP address is being used or not. We can see that this IP address is being used. This one is being transient. It means that it wasn't used, but now it's not. And some other situations is available. Okay? So you can see the current status. Maybe someone connected this box to the network just to do some testing. Now it's disconnected. That's why that device, the IP address is available. It means that it's not connected anymore. You can also see the MAC address, and you also can see the vendor. As we were saying before, as we can get this information, we can also display the vendor based on the MAC address.
Just on the subject of vendors, does it support Aerohive Wireless?
Any type of vendor that has assigned a MAC address will be covered here. It doesn't matter which vendor it is. Some situations, we have some kind of situations where, for example, we have a Windows device and it's a physical Windows box, and the network card obviously is not Windows, is Realtek, is Intel. That's the vendor that's going to be displayed because the MAC address belongs to that vendor. But if Aerohive has MAC address assigned, by all means, this will be displayed here.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. So what can we do here? Well, you have here a list of all the IP addresses that are not being monitored in SolarWinds. Okay, what can we do? Well, we can search. For example, I want to see only Cisco devices. Again, this is an expensive query. It's a really long script, so it's going to take a few seconds to execute. But based on it, this will tell us all the devices that are on this list that are from vendor equal to Cisco. And this is what we pretty much have here. What else can we do? Well, we can search for any other option. A genuine question here is, okay, here this will show me all the IP addresses that are not being monitored. But does it mean that if, for example, I have a router that has 10 IP addresses, but I'm just monitoring one of those IP addresses, does it mean that SolarWinds will discover that IP address? No, because SolarWinds has this capability, let me go here, of getting all the IP addresses assigned to a device. So when we monitor the device using SMP, or in case that is a Windows device, we use WMI, one of the metrics that we will get from that device is the number of IP addresses. Let's wait a little bit until this launches. Well, actually, I can do it from here as well. I can think, okay, now it's working fine, perfect. So let me show you here. Let's go to one layer 3 switch that we have here. Let's say this way, this one. And as you will see here, one of the metrics that we're getting is the list of all the IP addresses that that are configured on this device. As we have this information, what we've done on that view, on that query before, is check that IP address against all the ones configured, not only against the polling IP address, against all the ones. This will help us to avoid duplication of devices being monitored. Good. So yeah, we have go back here, we have this list of information. This is good, but again, here probably this is everything connected to your network, and probably you don't want to monitor everything that is connected to your network. You're interested on the switches, on the firewalls, on the wireless controllers, maybe access points as well, but you're not interested on every single PC, or if you're using VDI or any of other devices that you wouldn't like to monitor. How can we do that? Well, normally the way you do it is monitor using, so select only the devices from specific vendors. You can do it from here. You can search for a specific vendor, or what you've done is create a similar view, but now just filtering those devices from a specific vendor. So this is pretty much the same dashboard, and is only now getting those IP addresses that the IP address is being used, so it's still active, and in this case it's Cisco devices, or the filter also includes checkpoints, also includes FortiGates, HP ProCurve, so there are some other devices. From this installation, the only ones are these. So these IP addresses are potentially Cisco devices and potentially should be monitored. Okay. So now what can I do? Well, I can get this IP address, I can go to Manage Nodes, add the device. If you're already SolarWinds users, you know that this is a kind of a straightforward process, and then add the devices. The problem will be if we don't have just one device, we have hundreds of devices. In this case, we have two. Imagine you have 20, 30, 40, and it's not just now, it's every single day. That would be a problem. That's why what we intend to do here is automate this process. How can I automate this process here in SolarWinds? Well, I guess that you guys are aware that SolarWinds has an API that allows it bidirectional communication with any other third-party tool, or even with scripting using Perl or using PowerShell or any other language that is available. So what we can do is create a script that runs every day. We can create a Windows scheduled task on the Windows server that, first of all, check these devices, and second, add these devices into SolarWinds. I want to show you guys how to do that, so let me change the screen to this other window. So basically, what we have here, let me minimize this, is we have three scripts. The first one is a PowerShell script that monitors or gets the IP addresses of the devices not being monitored. Basically gets these two IP addresses. This is the way the script works. Basically, we check if we can execute this script. We get a specific file when we're going to export the values. We connect to the SolarWinds server, and then we execute the script. That's pretty much what we do here. Okay. This is something that can be automated. As again, as I said, you can create a Windows scheduled task to execute this every week, every day, every time you want. So what we're going to do, this is the testing I was doing before. I'm going to execute this right now on demand. Again, probably you wouldn't do it this way, but just for the sake of the demo, I'm going to do it this way. I execute this script, and what this is doing is getting the list of IP addresses. Let's see the result. I think the file is here, is on the SolarWinds files, automation. So we have a new file that is this one. As you can see, we have these two IP addresses, exactly the same ones that we have done before. Now, it's the same as we were saying. Okay, I see that there are two IP addresses that are not being monitored. In SolarWinds are Cisco, the IP address is being used, so potentially they should be monitored. What can I do? Add the devices. What we're going to do is execute this other script that basically goes through the properties of the device, adds the device into SolarWinds, set up some new monitors like CPU, memory, and so on. And finally, we add also the device into NCM. That's the third bit we're going to see later. Let's execute this script. Let's see if, okay, now. So now these devices have been added. Let's go back to the website. So in theory, those two devices, based on the API that can run every day, should be added to the network. Let's review. Let's refresh. Look, now it's empty. It means that all those devices that we thought that they were going to be, should be monitored, now they are monitored. Actually, let's see how it goes. We can go to Manage Nodes just to see if, in reality, these two devices are monitored. At the moment, they should be here, are these two IP addresses here. So in real time, this should take some time. Just for the sake of the demo, what I'm going to do is rediscover them and pull them now, just to go a little, speed up things a little bit. because otherwise it could take even half an hour and so on. But basically what I'm trying to do is, okay, SolarWinds, start getting data from these devices. The thing is that the first thing I've done, once I add the devices, is get a backup of the configuration. How did I do that? Well, in this case, I didn't have to use the API. I could have done using the API, but some people don't like the API, so prefer to do things using the graphical interface that we have in SolarWinds. So I had this alert that basically what it does is every time there is a network device, a new network device added into SolarWinds, automatically get a backup. And that's something that we can do using NCM. NCM, remember, is the module that pretty much you all guys have. Is the one that allows us to get backups. So in theory, if we go here, we should see that SolarWinds has tried to download the configuration of these new devices. And there we are. It tried to get it from this device that was successful, and in this one failed. Do not worry too much. If it fails, we should have also a report every week or every day telling us which are the devices that failed to get a backup. And again, we can have this information. But from this one, we have this information. So remember, this was a device that was not being monitored. Probably we didn't even know that this device existed. Now, UDT picked it up. IPAN said that this device was active. And now this device has been monitored, has been added into SolarWinds, is being monitored. So we can get CPU, we can get memory, we can get interface information and all this stuff. But also we can get a copy of the configuration. What the next step now? As I said, let me refresh here. Probably these devices has been already been detected. So yeah, this was, I think, was Cisco devices. So we have, this is the new device. It's still unknown. It will take a few more minutes just to get the information. Actually, I'm gonna force a poll just to get this information. Again, just for the sake of the demo, I'm trying to speed things up. Normally, in a real scenario, this is everything automated, and after half an hour, maximum 1 hour, everything should be monitored. So the thing that I've done is, based on this alert, I shouldn't have closed it, by the way. What I've done is, first of all, take a backup of the database. But the second thing that we'll do, actually, let me show you to the trigger actions. Okay, so remember, this alert is triggered every time there is a new network device connected to the network. First of all is check take a backup of the device. And then after 1 hour later, again, as I said, because maybe it takes some time to collect all the information that we need, what we're going to do is update the compliance report. What is that? Let me show you. One of the features that we have in NCM is get backups. And once we have backups of the network devices, we can see the configuration. Just to show you, for example, yeah, from the new device that we have added, this is the configuration. You can see all the running and startup configs that we're getting. I just click on one of them, and this is pretty much, as you can see, the backup. You can see it's a really simple device. From here, you can save the file if you want, or you can compare configurations, you can upload configurations, you can do a lot of stuff from here. What other features do we have in this module? Well, one of the important ones, at least for the sake of automation, is this, policy violations. So what we have done is here internally, we have some compliance policies. My devices shouldn't use Telnet. My devices should be sending syslog to this specific IP address, should have this NTP server, should have CDP disabled, shouldn't have public as community string, should have some security policies. At the moment, this is the way it's looking. So I have all my network devices that are part of NCM, and you can see that some of them are compliant, some of them are not. From here, what I can do is, for example, syslog to this IP address. This was not found. What I can do is execute remediation on this device, on all these devices in violation. Let me just allow the pop-up. And this, what we'll do is allow me to execute this new script that will configure basically syslog to Prosperon 3. So you can do these things. Okay, you just configure the rules, and then SolarWinds will check if that rule is in place, and if not, we'll give you the option to execute these remediation scripts. So that's basically what we're going to do here. What we're doing here is once we add the device, take a backup, and after 1 hour, just to check everything is in place, see if that device is compliant. Okay. What I'm going to do is, in the background, I'm going to execute this script. I don't want to wait 1 hour. So what I'm doing is, on the other window, I'm executing this script that basically updates the compliance policy report. And now, if everything worked fine, we should see the new device here and with all the violations. And there we are. As you can see, this is the new device that has been discovered. This is the IP address that we have discovered. And this is all the issues that we're finding. So remember, we had a device that we didn't even know that was in our network. We discovered using UDT, we checked using IPAM, if that IP address was being used, so it's still an active IP address. So we add the device, we add the device also in NCM, we get the backup, and we refresh this report. So now you can see that this device was a security threat because it doesn't have the managed VLAN, doesn't have the NTP server, expanding tree is not even enabled, that can generate a big chaos in our network, and also the syslog is not pointing properly, telnet is enabled, and VTP is not even configured in transparent mode. So you can see these are genuine issues that can happen on your network that can make a big issue on your network, and you don't even know because this device was not being monitored because no one told you to do so. With SolarWinds, we can monitor these situations. The last thing that we can automate is this. When you create the rules, you can tell SolarWinds, okay, this rule allow people to execute a remediation script, or automatically, when this has been detected that, for example, on this rule, on this device, this is not compliant, automatically execute this script. Let me show you. I think we have one question, Sam.
We do. So we're being asked whether it supports Juniper switches and firewalls.
Indeed. In theory, or potentially, any device that you have access to the CLI and you can execute the scripts, potentially is compatible with SolarWinds. In some situations, some devices will not be out of the box compatible with SolarWinds because SolarWinds doesn't have the template to connect to those devices. But most of the times in those situations, we can create a custom template that allows us to connect. A template is how can we connect to the device? How can we get the config backup? How can we reboot the device? How can we create a new configuration script? All these little things that in all the devices are kind of similar, but they are not the same. We need to tell SolarWinds how to do it. And that's what we say is the device template. For these most devices, Juniper, for example, SolarWinds has the template, it's fine. But in case you have any device that SolarWinds doesn't have the template, at least out of the box, do not worry. It's quite likely that we will be able to create a custom one.
Perfect, thank you.
So just to show you the last bit here, when we create a rule, for example, we're talking about the syslog here, this is a rule. The way we do it is, if this configuration is not found, then trigger this remediation script. This can be as simple as this, is not found, or is found. For example, the typical situation, SMP, server, community, public. If this is found, it means that you're using public as community string, and that's a potential security threat. So if this is found, then trigger an alert that is informational, warning, or critical. This can be simple, this can be more complex, as you can see, using strings, regular expressions with more than one line for the entire configuration or for specific config blocks like interface config, router config, things like that. So as you can see, it's quite flexible. And the little thing is the remediation script that you have here that can be manually executed or automatically when the violation is found. So here we have the full automation process. You don't have to do anything. Once SolarWinds discovers there is a new device on the network, we'll add it into the SolarWinds, we'll add it into NCM, we'll try to get a backup. If it doesn't get a backup, it will alert you saying there has an issue with this. But if it does have a backup, we'll compare against the policies. And if there is something not working fine, automatically we'll configure it. So as you can see, guys, we have, again, these three modules, UDT, IPAM, and NCM, that you have seen, guys, can allow us to, maybe not 100%, but improve the number of devices that are in our network and we want to monitor. Everything can be done manually if you want. You have seen here, we have this view, and we can get the devices manually, or using the API, we can automate the process and add the devices automatically. Once every day, once every week, things like this. Finally, if you think that this has been interesting for you guys, just let me show you our website, prosperon.co.uk, where we have a blog section where we talk about all these things. For example, this demo, we have a blog post here where you can get the scripts to get this information and all the steps to follow what we've done today. Okay. And actually, we have lots of blogs that are quite interesting, as you can see here. With this, we have finished the live demo. We have some presence in social media, in LinkedIn. We have the Prosperon link, Sam's link, or my link. If you want to check us out and send us a message or just say thank you for this brilliant demo, you can do that. You have access to the Prosperon blog or also in Thwack. I guess that you all know, guys, what is Thwack. Thwack is the SolarWinds community where people can ask questions, can upload new features, new scripts, things that are really useful. Here you have access to my account on Thwack or Sam's Thwack account, just in case you want to follow us. From time to time, we update with new things, with new scripts, new alerts, all the configurations that we think are really interesting. Follow us and you'll be updated with anything that potentially is going to be interesting for you. With that, I think we're finished, Sam, so I hand it over to you.
Perfect. So, yeah, I mean, there's only really one slide left here, and that's whether you guys have got any questions. I haven't seen any come through since the last ones. So I'll give you guys a couple of minutes, perhaps, to post some questions, and we'll catch up on those in a second. So we've had a question come in about any more webinars that we're doing. We do regularly run these webinars. We usually have something on a monthly or bi-monthly basis, and they're usually about different modules, different areas, so that we can kind of keep it across the board from the SolarWinds product point of view. But what we can certainly do is make sure that you guys are always getting emails and updates and invites when we do have webinars going on. Raul, this one's probably for you. We've got a question here on the DHCP and DNS part. What systems does it integrate into? Infobox or MS, for example?
Good question. So in terms of DHCP, SolarWinds can be integrated with Windows, Cisco or Cisco ASA DHCP servers, and also ISC, that's in some kind of Linux DHCP servers. In terms of DNS, it works with Windows and Bind DNS servers. There is no formal integration with Infobox, but using the API, we have a lot of flexibility that we could try to import or export some information from that vendor. But officially, the integration is with Windows, Cisco, ISC, and for DNS is with Windows and Bind.
Perfect. And there's one last question that's come in here. Somebody that's been looking at UDT recently, but he says that username is a friendly name and wondered whether he can get the Active Directory user account name because he can't find it. He can't find the field to be able to report on it.
Good. So it is possible because as we have seen before, we could see the match between endpoint and username. The thing is that it is true that it's not so intuitive to get that information out from the database. I would recommend to use SQL Studio instead of directly going to the SQL server. But it is possible, but yes, sometimes it's a little bit tricky to get the information. But as you can see, as we get the information in SolarWinds, it means that it's possible.
Perfect. So that's all of the questions that I've seen come in today. Obviously, if you've got anything following the webinar, feel free to give us a call or drop us an email. We're always happy to answer any questions that you've got. Otherwise, thank you again so much for attending the webinar, and hopefully we look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.
Thank you.